Okay, guys, I guess you can hear me now. Hopefully you can hear me. Testing 1, 2. Okay, so I'm trying some new software here. Hopefully this is working out here. I'm definitely not used to the way it's set up here, so just bear with me if I'm having any issues here. Let me know in the comment section if you can hear okay before I get into all the info here. Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2. Is everybody good? Colorado, I see you out there. Okay, cool. Let me know you guys all can hear me out here. I got some information that I wanted to pass on with you quickly, not anything majorly long and drawn out, but definitely go through some interesting information here that almost seems like it's kind of coinciding with things that are happening in the news. It sounds good. Okay, great. And I was passed on some information too, but I've been kind of looking at different things that seem to be kind of lining up. And, the news sources that I'm getting this information from might be a little questionable. They are large channels, they are very large channels that have very large followings. And I would say very large in the, when I say large, I'm talking in the millions. Mike Adams, I don't know if he's really in the millions anymore. He's kind of lost a lot of credibility, but a lot of people stopped following him because of his antics. And I think even Stu Peters is in that category as well. I'm not saying that I disagree with a lot of what they're saying. A lot of what they say is good, but then there's that questionable, percentage of things that they would say that I would probably be like, so you're put yourself way out there on a limb, making yourself a big target. But nonetheless, I listen to information that I don't always agree with, okay? In terms of the person or their stance, their platform. Many times I look at the whole package, and I always heard some good advice. Eat the meat and spit out the bones. There's always something you can gain from listening to people, even if you don't agree with them. That's what free speech is really all about. That's why I'm more of a free speech advocate than someone that would, censor someone into, a place where you can't even hear what they have to say, even if you don't agree with what they say or how they say it. But anyways, one of the things that Stu Peters had said recently, and I'm going to put this together with information that's coming out in the news as well, where I would say that it might have possible connections to what may be unfolding in the news. That looks kind of suspicious, if you will. The timing of things, the coincidental timing. always is something that catches my attention. I always look at patterns. I try to look at patterns. And I think, Pamela, you were the one that sent me some of that information. Pamela, that is you, right? Weren't you the one that sent me that? And I do appreciate people that send me stuff all the time. And Stu Peters is one of the guys that I had on my list. I don't listen to him often, because he is very big on the, and I understand why he thinks the way he thinks, but I don't always agree with the approach. and anyway, anytime you go on the approach of Stu Peters, he does have a lot of good points, but like I said, there's a lot of things I don't agree with a lot of these big channels that, anyways, I'm going to just get into what he said. He said that this is a post that he made on his Twitter page, his official Twitter page. He has about 800,000 subscribers or followers on Twitter on his personal account. Now, his personal account was, they took away the blue check mark from his account. And they did that for a reason. His main brand channel, Stu Peters Network, does not have the blue check mark taken away because they don't post those controversial, topical, Twitter's a little more open now. They don't censor everything, so you can still say stuff that might be considered bad speech or even anti-Semitic or something, racist, whatever, and they'll still leave it up because there is that free speech environment supposedly, but they'll mute you. They'll mute your speech. They'll mute your account. And so his account has been somewhat muted. His network is still very large. The network part of Twitter is still there. Well, he didn't post this on his network. He posted this on his personal account, which I said had about 800,000 followers. And he said in this tweet, and maybe I can show it to you. Let me just pull it up here. And I want you guys to think about what's really happening here. This is really interesting stuff. And I would think that if there is some merit to these warnings, that we might want to be paying attention. Now, I know people can be smart as a fox, but really in light of eternity and the wisdom that really comes from above, I don't appeal to natural, and I'm talking about wisdom that, comes from a biblical worldview and that has a spiritual source. If you're a believer and you're a Christian, you know what I'm talking about. We don't counsel and we don't go to the world for our understanding or our advice. Now, we can look at the things in the world, and I say the world, I'm talking about people that are not, in a place where we might say is a place of undiluted, pure connection to information that you might say is truth that has not been altered, okay, or hasn't been tampered with. Because most of the people that are not believers, and I'll say this, if you're not a believer, this is the way Christians, and you're out there listening to what I'm saying, this has a lot to do with what I'm saying. You're going to have a worldview that's going to be affected by other influences. Your mind is going to be persuaded and or tainted in its perceptions. Okay, if you are led by the Spirit of truth, the Bible talks about this being the Spirit of God, then you're going to have a more, I would say, a greater understanding of the big picture or the context of what we would call divine truth. Now, if you're a non-believer, you probably wouldn't even accept that as being even valid, because you would say, we have brains. God has given us an ability to understand and reason. And anybody that has exercised those faculties and has studied and has acquired all the tools necessary, the more you work, the more you gain, the more you understand, the more you interact with the world. You're going to be more wise, right? You're going to have street smarts, so to speak. And whatever field of knowledge that is. But I'm talking about a wisdom that's above that. Okay. And I'm talking about a perception that is above that, which I would say is divine. Now, like I said, you may not believe that if you're not a Christian, that where I'm coming from. But my sense is that Stu Peters, they talk about being a believers. They talk about being Christians. However, some of the things in the way in which he approaches things, I would say, is not true to biblical the heart or the motivation of what Scripture might teach is the heart of God. They might justify that and say, well, we're in a war, and we bring our faith into our politics, and we utilize all of those talents and beliefs that we have about God, and we make war, right? I mean, there's been throughout history, there's been Christian warriors, and there's been you can go back all the way to the origins of Christianity, at least at the time of Constantine, and you saw them going out making war in the name of Jesus or in the name of Christianity. But that's really not what the gospel truly teaches. Our kingdom is not of this world, right? And if it were, Jesus said, then my servants would fight. But his servants don't fight because they're not looking at kingdoms that are in this world. So politically speaking, for those who are political Christians or the moral majority, as you would say, or the Christian right that are caught up in the whole political, things that are happening politically, I would say that they probably have a tainted view of what true spiritual wisdom is, or the true understanding of the mind and heart of God about what's going on in the world. And I would say counseling with God Most High is your ultimate go-to place to find answers that are going to be untainted by natural reasoning and or influences of the dark demonic world that does govern the planet. Because the Bible is very clear about that all the kings of the earth and all the powers that be are subject in some way, willingly or unwillingly, to the powers and principalities that govern the world, the prince of this world being the devil himself, right? Their minds are shrouded, and they're being manipulated, controlled, ultimately in their perceptions by that prince, the prince of the power of the air, who now rules. It says in the sons of disobedience, the sons of disobedience, right? Okay, so the reason I bring all that up is because I want you to understand something about the reason I access information, whether they're Christians that I agree with that are truly being led by the Spirit of God, because I do believe anybody can have information, whether they're right with God or not, that is being accessed. It's like intelligence. It's like you listen to all intelligence, whether it's coming from your side or from the other side, right? You want to hear communications, you tap in and you listen to what they're talking about. You study your adversary, right? You're not supposed to be ignorant of the devices of the enemy. The Bible says not to be ignorant of the devil's devices. You're to be walking and watching with eyes wide open what is going on. And that's what we're doing here. So what happened with this intelligence, and this is what he said it was, intelligence from a very high level military source. This is coming from Stu Peters. Stu Peters doesn't make these types of statements. He does have a little sensationalism at times, but I don't think that he makes statements like this at all. He doesn't make statements like this, and I haven't seen any statements like this in his past where he just comes right out and says that war is going to take place after the 15th of May, that his high-level sources in the military, and they say that this is all scripted, this is all part of a plan, theater, if you will. As I have told you before, a lot of this is pre-planned. And if we know, if this is literally information that we're getting, then you know that the power, Russia and China and all these other powers know it too, right? Because it's out there right now on social media. So what did he say? He said, and I'm going to show you. And Mike Adams chimed in and said he agreed with it. And, Mike's not a dummy, but obviously Mike is not scripturally and or having any kind of semblance of sound doctrine. He's totally completely off the rails when it comes to his Christianity, or what he says is Christianity that he holds to. So anybody that follows him spiritually as a self-proclaimed pastor, as being a new Christian and now a self-proclaimed pastor, I would say don't even listen to what he has to say, because he is so far off scripturally, it's not even funny. If anything, I would classify him as a New Age Christian, like masquerading as a Christian, a New Ager masquerading as a Christian. But that doesn't mean he's stupid. I'm not saying that he has no intelligence and that he doesn't have any access to information that may be legit. So he's actually confirming what he believes to be a timeline that he sees is unfolding that may have some significance coming from the different news sources that we're all watching. We're all watching the same thing. So what was it that he said? What did Stu Peters actually say? He said, and this is what he posted. Let me see if I can put it on the screen here so you can see it. This is from his personal account, and it was posted on the 22nd of April. And I want to make sure I set the stage here so you guys can get what I'm getting at here. I had this set up earlier, but I lost I had a problem with my my software here. Now, why is it that I'm not finding this? Okay, because I'm on the wrong account. All right, Stu Peters. Is this it? The real Stu Peters. Okay, here we go. This is the real Stu Peters. And he said here, let me make sure I can pull it up here. Oh, great. You know, I have to scroll through his account here, but let me just pull up what. Oh, gosh. You know, when somebody posts a lot, you try to pull up their account, you just got to scroll through like pages and pages because he posts so much information. And it takes a minute to get to it. I'm almost there. You know, this guy posts so much stuff. I'm only on May 1st, and I got to get down to the April 22nd. Are you kidding me? Okay, because I had this set up here. Okay, I'm on April 28th. Let's go. Come on, hurry up. He posts like absolutely crazy amounts of information. Okay, I'm on the 26th, 25th. And, you know, the farther back you go, the slower it goes, you know, well, there's so much information that's backed up. And you know, if you look at his account, you would say, man, how has this guy got so many people following him with some of the stuff that he says? You know, the same thing's going on with Kanye West. You know, you would say they're probably anti-Semitic in the way they're coming across. And I understand the backlash. It's kind of like a boomerang. You know, you got a bunch of stuff that's happening politically, and then you got people on the right responding, and it turns into more of a, you know, and you have to go back historically too to see what they're really talking about. And I don't want to get into all that talk, but here it is. Okay, so I'm on the right page now. Okay, so he says, I just spoke to high-level intelligence. Let's see if I can put this on the screen here. Is this the way I do it? All right, so hold on one second here. I got to figure out how to do this really quick. New scene. Oh, yeah, that's how you do it. Okay. All right, so sorry. I'm still learning this software. If you just bear with me on this. Okay, so what he's saying here, if you can see this, I'll just put it so I'm a little. he says here, and by the way, I'll get this down to a science here once I get used to doing this, so just bear with me. He said, this was on April 22nd. He said, I just spoke to a high-level military source. War is imminent. Had to repost or post a screenshot because I'm only allowed to tweet 275 characters. And that's because his account's limited. And you're not allowed to post a lot when you got a limited account. But he says, we are currently sending a ton of assets to Germany in anticipation of a full-blown kinetic war in Western Europe that will start sometime after May 15th. When pressed on the significance of May 15th, the source said, not before May 15th. This is fake and it's all scripted in advance. So basically saying that this is the way it's working. This is all part of a plan. Now, Zelensky is going to talk to Putin on the 15th. Out of the blue, he's going to talk to Putin. If you saw the videotape today of Stromberg, Macron, there was one other guy there that had just talked to Zelensky. They had just been with Zelensky talking to him. And these three leaders are all sitting around the table. And what they're saying is cocaine is on the table in a little baggie. They're saying, oh, no, it was a handkerchief. Well, the one guy picks up what looks like a spoon, a cocaine spoon. He picks that up and he looks like he hides it. And then Macron pulls that what looks like a bag of cocaine they're saying is actually a handkerchief. He pulls it at the same time, and it's almost like they're trying to hide it. Why are they doing that? If it was a handkerchief, leave it there. What was that little spoon thing that he pulled out? Why did the other guy pull the spoon and hide it? Well, because Zelensky is a known cocaine head or a cokehead. Zelensky is a complete druggie. And you can see a lot of evidence that he does cocaine, and not to mention his past. There's a lot of past things that he's said and done, and this guy is a real winner, a real beauty, as Trump would say, a real beauty. But anyway, so they're there talking with Zelensky, and all this stuff is unfolding, and now Zelensky says he's going to go directly face-to-face talks with Putin. And the U.S. is now completely backing Ukraine. We're sending in all kinds of armaments. Look at this. Look at this. So it says here, U.S. green lights long-range missile transfer to Ukraine. This was dated today. So you're looking at this kind of thing happening now. And Moscow's trying to call for negotiations, but what does it look like we're doing? We're stepping it up. We're stepping up some kind of major operation here, it looks like to me. And it looks like Trump's going the whole completely opposite direction that he was when he first came in, because he was kind of pivoting toward Putin and trying to cater to these countries and resisting some of the strong arm tactics of the West and NATO, and actually even making it seem like he was pulling back from NATO at a certain point. He's already talked about this back in his first administration a bit of leaving NATO, but and really a close ally of Israel. Now what's he doing? He's doing a big flip-flop. He's pulling away from Israel. He's basically putting out all kinds of press releases about how their relationship has just basically fallen apart. He's not even going to go visit Israel on his trip to Middle East. And now he's getting fully 100% behind Zelensky when he was lambasting Zelensky in public, saying that, they were doing the stupid thing. We're going to leave them. They're going to have to fight it on their own. We're not going to even be there to even help them. But now we're doing a 180 on that. And we're getting right behind Zelensky, sending him all kinds of armaments, basically taking his, rare earth mineral rights as well in the deal that we made with him. And it looks like Russia is realizing that this is all going to come back around, and it looks like war is about to go down. This is what I'm thinking. So you got this right now happening, and listen to this guy here. I want you to listen to this guy right here and tell me what you think. Now, this guy just posted this yesterday. His channel's called Vigilante. He's got about 20,000 subscribers. And listen to what he had to say. Let's see if we can get a little video on this where you can hear this. Make sure that you're hearing this. I queued it up to the point where he starts talking about this. So listen in really carefully what he's saying here.
But the lights started to come back on a few days later, and I just go with the flow during the apocalypse. We go with our gut, our intuition, our connection to source. We will get signs and signals if we're not supposed to be somewhere. We didn't get them for this trip. So that's my travel advisory. I know a lot of people use like the US State Department, which Doug Casey actually says, and I do as well. The best places to go visit are the places that the US State Department says not to go to. Because it's usually quite empty, quite cheap, and it's usually not very dangerous because it's almost always lies. So I booked it in Spain, which is one of the places we wanted to go. It looked like it might be going Mad Max. And so I just said to my family, I said, look, hey, if it's still Mad Max by the time we want to go there, we just won't go there. That's how you do it during the apocalypse. You just bounce around. And so I was just kind of laughing at that. And then a few days later, I see this from Stu Peters. I just spoke to a high-level military source. War's imminent. Had to post a screenshot of my post because I'm only allowed to tweet 275 characters. We're currently sending a ton of assets to Germany in anticipation of a full-blown kinetic war in Western Europe that will start sometime after May 15th. When pressed on the significance of May 15th, the source said, not before May 15th. This shit is fake and it's all scripted in advance. So again, I had just booked our first family European trip. One of the locations we wanted to go in anticipation.
And look at how many views that tweet had. That tweet had almost 1 million views. It was 800,000 views. This tweet by Stu Peters had 800,000 views. Just so you know, it's not being tweeted just to nobody. And there's other people that are chiming in on this as well. So just take note of that.
Of a full-blown kinetic war in Western Europe that will start sometime after May 15th. When pressed on the significance of May 15th, the source said, not before May 15th. This shit is fake and it's all scripted in advance. So again, I had just booked our first family European trip. One of the locations we wanted to go to was Spain. And they had no power after going 100% renewable the week before. And so I was laughing at that. And then I see this thing from Stu. And you see these things all the time. It's not like for sure there's going to be a war in Europe after May 15th. But I do pay attention to these things, and I do have eyes to see and ears to hear. And I find, in my particular video game experience, it's the same in yours probably. I'm almost sure it is. But most people don't pay attention to all the signs and signals they get. Things come into your awareness for a reason. So I paid attention. I was like, just booked our trip to Europe, and then I see this thing from Stu, who I've got a lot of trust with. I know him, we're friends. I think a lot of the stuff he's doing is great. And he puts out a lot of great stuff. And so, when he puts this out, it's not like it's Andrew Tate or Joe Rogan or Tim Pool or something, right? It's someone who has some credibility. And it pops up on my screen right after I said we're going to Europe. So I had already booked return flights. And I saw the date on it. It says after May 15th. And I didn't remember what my return flight date was. But I go and look, and it was actually our return flight was May 15th. So I went and reread it again, and it says not before and not on, but after May 15th, because it's all planned. And I was like, well, if it's after May 15th, we'll be gone. So perfect. So it's like, okay, we'll probably just get back to the ranch just in time for it to kick off. And again, you just go with the flow. It's like, well, it looks like the plan is for after May 15th if it's going to happen. And that's a pretty extreme, obviously, thing, right? Like an actual hot war in Western Europe starting after May 15th. But like I said, it's after May 15th, so we're all good. And it's kind of funny too, because it actually like emphasizes that in Stu's post, right? Sometime after May 15th. When pressed on the significance of May 15th, the source said, not before May 15th. I was like, man, the thing that it got into my awareness from a credible source was really emphatic. Not before. Absolutely not before. But could be after. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So it'd be pretty funny if I take my daughter for her first trip to Europe. Very first day, she almost gets killed. She gets pepper sprayed. And we just get back home in time, and maybe the power goes out in Spain again or something. And then just before we get back home, Europe gets like nuclear warred. Not that I necessarily believe in the nukes. I'll get into that because we're actually going to talk a bit about that in this video. They actually got.
All right, so basically, you know, that whole the whole idea of, well, why can't I get rid of my screen here? Oh, I'm in the wrong screen. That's why. Like I said, I'm learning this software, so please bear with me on this. So, you know, what does all this mean? I mean, you know, Europe's been planning and preparing for war, whether it was Germany or Spain or France. I mean, this has been something, or UK. They've been talking about this for at least 6 months in earnest in their expectation of a conflict with Russia via Ukraine. And now that Trump's back on board, everything's got kind of quiet. It's got very quiet. The big focal point now is the Middle East and what's going on with Israel and Iran and the Yemenis. And I just think it's very interesting that Trump really just overtly went forward with a peace agreement without really even making any kind of confirmations of communications with Yemeni's military or the Houthis. They kind of denied it at first, but I think they went along with it knowing that in the PR department that it's good for them because we're really turning on Israel all of a sudden. And they like that, so they probably are like, okay, well, we won't mess with your ships. Trump's made it public that he's trying to make us look good. He said we're brave soldiers. He didn't put us down. He said something nice about us. Let's go ahead and go with this, right? Same thing with the Chinese. Now the Chinese tariffs are coming down, and they're saying now only 35%. It was 50. Before that, it was 145, and now Trump is coming down, and it's kind of like go hard to the extreme and then pull back. And then everybody should be accepting what you want because everybody's so used to that extreme, let's try to get away from this extremism and let's have a happy medium. That's how you negotiate. When you go for a sale, and Trump's always talks about how he's a negotiator or the art of the deal, right? So how does he make these deals? Well, you tell somebody you have a piece of property. You go over the top, a couple $100,000 more than what it's really worth. And you sound very hardcore about it and the reasons why, and you sell it hardcore, like you're not going to budge. And you say you got other people involved and there's other people interested and you make up a big hubbub. You get everybody all, so you can tell when somebody really wants something, but they don't want to pay that price. But, I think maybe we can go down just a little bit on it. So you give them that little bone, you try to bring them halfway, even if it's halfway, you're good, right? Because you made more than even what you were really wanting for it. You could go all the way down if you had to, but see, this is what Trump does. He goes extreme and then he pulls back and he tries to get a happy medium, or even if he has to go back to the original place where he really wanted to bring it, He's good. But that's kind of like the thing I was talking about, where Trump comes out like, I'm crazy, crazier than you. You want crazy? Here's some crazy. I'll show you some crazy. And he sounds crazy. He looks crazy. He looks like he would do something crazy by the way he talks. And so people are like, oh, they're all taken aback by it. Like, okay, well, this guy doesn't have any kind of, he's not beholden to Israel. Obviously, Israel doesn't control him. He's now thumbing his nose at Netanyahu, telling Netanyahu to go stick it where, wherever he wants it, basically just dropping the whole Israeli thing. And everybody's like, what? Even the MAGA people are like, what is going on here? The whole AIPAC thing where he's going to pull out of AIPAC, and he told Israel's not going to control his presidency. And he's basically feeding this whole narrative of the, this whole anti-Semitic movement that's been moving. This is what Stu Peters is all part of. And people like Nick Fuentes and the whole right, everybody's talking about this Jewish influences, about how they're controlling everything, our money system and our country and our politics and our politicians. And the Jews are always saying, that's hatred. That's anti-Semitic. Don't talk about that. You're making it seem like, even though they say it amongst themselves, but all this stuff is coming out into the open now, right? So this whole conversation that's been very taboo is now becoming mainstream. And Stu Peters has this new thing out where he's got this J-Proof, which is a meme coin, J-Proof, Jew-Proof, right? And they're selling this meme coin and it's going viral. So people like Kanye West, and you know what Kanye West is doing. Did you see the recent video he posted about Hitler? Did you see that? YouTube had to take it down. They were not even allow it, but it's still on Twitter. This thing was just posted like 3 days ago, but this has a lot to do with what's going on politically, this whole Jew thing. And I understand there's very passionate views about the influences of Judaism and the mindset behind history, and whether the way in which history is retold or is understood. When you really go and really do the research, you find it's not as cut and dry as people might think, and the way people say it. If you really do the research in an unbiased way, you want to be able to hear and understand and know what was really happening, right? You don't want to just believe a bunch of propaganda. So you have to look at things in an unbiased way. And that means looking at things you might not agree with historically, because this is what you've been taught and this is the way things have always been. But that's not a good way to gain understanding of what is really true. Very similar to the Schofield Bible and how people have followed what they think is sound doctrine when it's really twisted interpretations of Schofield or Darby. And you don't go historically back to the original sources and the way the Bible's been interpreted all throughout the millennia and the centuries going way back. And all you're doing is becoming an evangelical programmed, Pharisee of the last 200 years, 200 or 300 years of twisted doctrines that have been inserted into a Bible. They said was, this is what you believe, right? So Christians many evangelicals are caught up into this interpretation. It's a revisionism. It's an altering. And then they try to cloak it with some kind of scriptural reasoning for why you should believe it, when it's really, if you look at the whole context and the history of it, is wrong. It's wrong. And it's wrong for a reason, because it's trying to put a narrative into people's head about political unfolding things that were going to unfold in our recent history. And this is why they inserted it through what we call Darby Bible and the Schofield Bibles, the Darby interpretations or notes, Darby's notes. And this is over the last couple hundred years. So you have to do the research on this. So that's why I say accurate historical interpretation and with an unbiased view is what's really going to set you free, right? You want to know the truth. You want to know the truth that's going to set you free. If Jesus said certain things that are classified as anti-Semitic, well, we can't talk about what Jesus said because we need to censor that part of the Bible. Are you going to censor that? Are you going to not talk about it because somebody said it's anti-Semitic and you can't think that? You can't have that kind of thought in your mind, even though Jesus himself said it. We're talking about real history. It's not candy-coated history or revising something that's ugly so that you don't look bad or that your people don't look bad because historically they said, may his blood be upon us and upon our children. You know, we'd rather have Barabbas. Okay. That doesn't mean that the Jews are the only ones that crucified Jesus. The Gentiles did too. Okay. The Romans crucified Jesus as well. So we're not anti-Roman, and I'm not anti-Semitic just because I believe that the Jews also delivered him up. It was a part of humanity's fall, whether you're Jew or Gentile. Okay. But the Jews want to say, oh, that's anti-Semitic. We need to make that hate speech. If you start preaching the Bible on those particular topics, you're basically preaching hate, right? And so this whole thing with what's going on here with politically with Trump and the Jews and all the talk about that's going on all about that's becoming viral now, especially because of Kanye, and now you've got this Jew coin. Or they call it Jew proof. So it's money that is not controlled by Jewish interests, right? So they call it a J proof meme coin, which they use as a means to make money to support their work, right? So a lot of these people like Fuentes are getting into it, Nick Fuentes, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kanye's into it, but Stu Peters, because they've been censored and their bank accounts have been shut down, and they go after their payment processors and their revenue sources, and they shut it all down, and so now they're looking at it as a means of support, right? So they say, well, these platforms are for people that are white supremacists and drug dealers, and well, Trump used it. So what are you going to say? Trump was doing meme coins. Was he a criminal or a white supremacist or trying to skirt the financial system to try to make extra money so that it's not controlled and or regulated? He made at least a few $1 billion within just 24 hours. Y'all know that, right? And that's your president, your favorite president, right? That's your favorite president. So, yeah. I'm looking at some of your comments right now. Kathy says, I'm late here. Who's fighting World War III now? I've lost track of all the morons. I know. Seriously, huh? Well, Europe has been preparing, and something looks like there's something afoot here with recent meetings with Macron, Stammer, and Zelensky on the eve of this face-to-face conversation with Putin, on top of the fact that we've done a 180-degree turn on Israel, and also relenting on possible attacks on Iran and Yemen, to the chagrin of the Israelis, in complete and utter astonishment and confusion. But this is exactly what I told everybody would happen. I said Trump would double-cross Israel. How many of you guys remember me saying this over the last year? I said, if this is all true about what we're saying about Trump, he will double-cross Israel. At a certain point, he will do a 180 and double-cross them. How many of you guys remember me saying that? Did anybody out there ever hear anybody else say that? Because from a MAGA standpoint, this is his platform, Israel first, right? Israel first. It didn't look like it would ever happen, did it? It wasn't even in the cards. But why is it that we knew? Well, how did we get it right? Because that's contrary to anything anybody would even have suspected of Trump and the MAGA movement. Because most of MAGA is, Israel first, right? How did we get that right? Kathy Moore, you remember me saying it, right? Pamela, you remember me saying it, right? At least a year ago. For the last couple years, I've been, I would say for the last year especially. But I even think we would say it even going farther back that he would double cross Israel. In fact, I probably can find it right here on my page here. Let me just see if I can find it on my Telegram page. Let's see if I can find it here. How far back I said it. Let's see. Okay, well I got one example right here. This was in August of 2024. Like I said, I've said it a number of times. And this is August of 2024. So that would have been what? Almost a year ago? So this was almost a year ago. Let me see if I can put this on the screen here. Does it show? Oh, gosh. So I can't show. Oh, yeah, I can. Okay, I can. Okay. Hold on one second. Okay, here we go. Like I said, I'm doing all this new for the first time, so just please bear with me. Okay, so if you see this, can you see that? No, you can't. Okay. Why can't I show you that? Okay, there we go. All right, so if you see this post right here, is this the moment when USA promises to have Israel back and is double-crossed? Israel alone to take on the Muslim world? You see that? That was dated, if you look, right there, August 2nd, 2024. Now, like I said, I've said this on other occasions, and I could probably find it here on other occasions here where I might have said it in a different way. Let's see. Is this the place? Some of the stuff I post is just absolutely crazy. Let me just look and see. Let me see if I could find an older post. That was almost a year ago, 3 months to a year. Well, it was almost 10 months ago. But I know I've said it previous. Just so you know, I just wanted to show you at least one example of me saying something like that. Now, I've talked about that in the context of who I believe Trump to be. And if it's true to what I believe, then he will double cross Israel. And I also told my wife, not even 2 weeks before this happened, it was probably within the week, I said, Trump, if he is this person that we think he is, and some would say he's not the Assyrian, yes, he is, because his heritage is German, and the Assyrians migrated to Germany. The ancient Assyrians migrated to Germany. If you didn't know that, go do some research historically. So yes, he is the Assyrian. So he could fit that description of what we're talking about as well, the Assyrian. For those who know their prophecy, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into all the details. For those who don't know, it's okay. You don't need to know. But for those who do know your prophecy and about the prophecies of the Assyrian, okay, so he fits that too. Okay, so he has towers. He double crosses Israel. he has a peace accord, covenant with many, Daniel 29:27, which is a covenant with many is Abraham, father of many, covenant accord, right? So you have a covenant with many. He signs a covenant with many, and then he breaks that covenant 3.5 years into that covenant, which is what I said would happen. There would be a breaking of the covenant. This is a breaking of the covenant. And it's about 3.5 years in. It's a little more than that, but it's right around that period of time. And I told you guys February 26th was the 1260th days, the 1260th day, or the 3.5 year marker of when he signed that covenant with many, the Abraham Accords. And it says that he would confirm the covenant, which means that he would make it seem, I guess, like the covenant was still continuing on at a certain point, but then it would be broken. Okay, so are we seeing that happen right now? That's why I said it. That's the only reason I said it. It wouldn't, because in the natural, it doesn't look like he would be in any way stabbing Israel in the back or double crossing them or, being a Judas to him, right? He wouldn't do that because he's got the platform of MAGA, which is bless Israel. He who blesses Israel will be blessed. We support Israel. We will not divide it, because if we divide it, we'll become under the curse. We will never do that. Everybody's supporting Israel, right? Anyways, I know it's late, and I'm kind of really tired, and I shouldn't even gone on this late, but I'd had to for all you guys out there that are insomniacs. So, Kathy, you remember. How do you guys like this little overlay feature? Oh, no. Where's my comments? Oh, there you go. I like what Gina says. You're definitely awake now. No, I'm not. I'm feeling like I'm really sleepy and want to go take a nap. I'm going to go to sleep. So I got now I'm simulcasting this right now. So for you guys that are watching me right now on Facebook, is there anybody out there on Facebook? Type in here if you're on Facebook. I also have, what other channel do I got going on here? Let me look at my Facebook page. I actually was going to do it on Twitter, but let's see if the Facebook is up and running here. Facebook, are you on here? Yeah, Facebook is totally throttled. I have complete and utter shadow banning on Facebook. I have 44,000 followers, and I have 2 people watching me. That's it. When we would go live in the past, we would have, that's so weird. We would have, what in the world is going on here? We would have, 20,000, 30,000 people watching live, and then we would have 100, 200,000 views per video. And now we can't even get 1 or 2 people watching. With all of these subscribers, we are totally, completely shadow banned on Facebook. They have tried to get us to confirm our Facebook page, and we just kept saying, nope, go ahead, just delete it. We don't even want it. So they leave it. They don't delete it. They let us back on, but they let us back on, and they completely mute us. They shadow ban us. So we can't even be seen by anybody that follows us. So I just wanted to do another little test on Facebook. But I think I also tried to do Rumble. Rumble is just got major issues. I just don't even like streaming on Rumble at all. Rumble has major problems. And yeah, I'm not even on Rumble. And I meant to go, I did a simulcast and it didn't even show up. So there you go on that. Let's see. Well, it says that I'm not even connected to Rumble. So it just shows 2. It just shows Facebook and BP News. Anyways, okay. So what else was I going to say here? There was one other thing that we were going to talk about here. Let me see here. Let me make sure I got everything that I wanted to share with you guys about. Oh, okay. Did you see this? So this is being posted on Israeli channels right now. What do you think about this? Can you see that? No. Why is that not popping up? Can you see that? That's weird. Okay. So you can't see that. Can you guys see that? No. It just looks like a blue screen to me. All right, let me try sharing it on here. All right, so there you go. So you see that there? So Israel is now posting stuff like this because Trump is making a 180-degree turn, and they don't seem to really like the new policies. These are coming from Israeli channels. So they don't seem to be very happy with Trump right now. And they're posting this photo of him. What do you think? Pretty crazy, huh? Anyways. The overlay is easier to read. What overlay? What do you mean, Hick Gal? When you say the overlay is easier to read, what do you mean? Did I do something? Was I doing something good or bad? Or I should be doing something else? I'm still learning all this. Now I can invite people on here too. It's kind of cool software, you know. It's not bad. It works out pretty good. Just playing around with all this new toys here. So if I want to add, okay, so I stopped sharing screen. What did I do? Okay, so let's just go back over here. Oh, let's look at Kanye West. Can you see the Kanye West stuff? I'm on the wrong one now. So look at the Kanye West stuff. Wow. So he posted this 1 hour ago. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. That's interesting. Now, you know, he claims he's a Christian, but, you know, he does all this worldly stuff, totally, completely worldly crap that, you know, there's no way that's going to fly. If you say you're a Christian, you can't be practicing this kind of thing. I know that the same thing happened with Justin Bieber and Marilyn Manson. And, you know, when Marilyn Manson and Justin Bieber were hanging out with Kanye and they were doing that, you know, Christian video, Marilyn Manson is a complete and utter Satanist. You know, there's no way. Justin Bieber obviously has had major issues, and especially with the recent, you know, church that he was involved with and the pastor that he was involved with, you know, scandalous kind of things that came out about that. Not to mention Justin's, you know, past with, you know, Diddy and everybody else. That's supposedly some bad stuff there. So, you know, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with these guys that say they're Christians, and they're using this Christianity as a kind of way to inspire a lot of prejudice and hate and racist kind of things, like, because like people like Kanye are looked at as, oh well, he's a Christian, but he's promoting anti-Semitism, and that's all he talks about is this terrible stuff that it's just anti-Semitic stuff. Like you would say, well, he's feeding the beast. He's making it seem like that's exactly what he's doing. And if you haven't listened to his recent video about Hitler, my gosh, I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Like, what is he doing? Like, is this just to kind of set Christians up as being, this to make Christians look like we're, like as if that's us, it's like a false flag. Well, Christians all do this, look at Stu Peters, look at Kanye West, look at these people. They're all people that promote anti-Semitism, or it kind of feeds that whole narrative, So you almost kind of wonder if it's like a false flag against Christians, like to set Christians up as being, you've got your crazy evangelicals out there anyway. When the Bible says that the whore, which I believe is the false church, is going to ride the beast. They're going to be on the political beast system. They're going to be going along with it, but they're going to be riding it. And then at a certain point, the beast turns and devours the woman, right? So this beast turns around and eats the false church, devours it. And I would say that's probably exactly what's going to happen to everybody that says they're political Christians or Christians, but they're so political. They're so caught up with this whole. That's why I'm apolitical, not political whatsoever. I'm not left or right or center. I am just a citizen of the New Jerusalem, the heaven that comes down out of the heavens. I'm not even talking about Jerusalem here on earth, because the mother of us all, it says, is coming down out of the heavens. And that is the true definition of what God wanted for humanity, that he would be amongst his people, not just Jews, but Gentiles as well. All of humanity that calls upon his name would be saved. It wasn't just for a one nation kind of thing that is going to be filled with all kinds of pride that they're somehow chosen, right? Everybody that calls upon the name of the Lord will be chosen, will be called, and will be drawn near, both Jew and Gentile. And if you really understand the real history and the context of the Bible and its application of spiritual truth, you'll understand it has nothing to do with the traditions, the festivals, the adherence to ritual law. That was all part of a prayer. It's kind of like, and the scripture even says this, that it's a schoolmaster. The law was a schoolmaster, which would lead us to Christ, right? It would lead us to ultimate freedom. So when you're a child, you think as a child, you act as a child, but when you become a man or an adult, you start thinking with your own thoughts, right? You don't have a guidance of your parent telling you don't do this and you can't do this. Is the law. I lay it down under my roof, you will obey, right? Or else you will get disciplined, right? And so that's what the law was under Moses. It was a complete and utter tutor, or what they call as a tutelage, right? You're under tutelage of the law. You're under the tutor of your parent and or another will. It's not your own will. It's imposed upon you. But when you come of age, you then begin to exercise your own will, which your own will now becomes written on your heart, the tablet of your heart, by the Holy Spirit, to do God's will from the heart. You no longer need external pressures and do's and don'ts and rituals and festivals. And this was all to lead us to Christ. It was a disciplinary teaching for not just Israel, but for the whole of the world. They would be the instructional tool that God would use to bring all the world to Christ, to the Messiah. And that's exactly what Jesus did. He came in the context of the faith of Judaism for the purpose of revealing himself to the 12, ultimately to take that message global. And God is able to do whatever he chooses through whomever he chooses. And he used the Jew first, and then he came to the Gentile, right? So it was Jew first, and then the Gentiles. And then now it was to make the Jews jealous because they basically lost covenant. They're obviously went into dysphoria for 2,000 years as a sign of their destruction, at least of their kingdom, and their covenant with God was ultimately annulled and or put on hold until they receive Messiah back. Until they receive their Messiah, they don't have their covenant. They don't have a temple. They don't have anything, right? They don't even know who their Messiah is. Now they say Moshiach now, the redemption of Israel draws nigh. We're in the land, but where's the temple? Where's the sacrifices? Where's the ultimate Messiah himself? Well, he was the one that was to fulfill the sacrificial system that they missed when he was here, and then they crucified him, which was all part of the plan anyway. Judas was part of the plan as well. He was a vessel unto destruction, but he was ultimately predestined for that purpose, right? He fulfilled the ultimate plan of God. We all have free will. That doesn't mean that we're robots, but he ultimately did have that free will to do what he did. And he was written into the script, just like Israel was written into the script when they denied their Messiah. Now they will receive him when he comes and returns again, just like Joseph ben Moshiach. He ultimately received his brethren back after they tried to kill him. He forgave them. He received them, and he had gone before them and said to them, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And he sent me ahead of you so that I could bring salvation to, the lineage of Israel, ultimately to become what they become, and the whole of the world, because he stockpiled enough food, and he had been commissioned by God to prepare for the famine that would overtake the whole of the known world at that time. So even though they tried to kill him, he ultimately brought salvation to the whole of the world. This is exactly what Joseph did. And this is what Jesus did. That's why the sages of the Talmud even call the two messiahs, one a suffering Messiah under the title Joseph ben Moshiach, and the conquering king, Moshiach ben David, right? So conquering king, suffering servant, two different messiahs. Ultimately, they were one and the same. They just missed it. And that's why their house was left desolate. That's why their temple was destroyed. That's why they were dispersed into all the world for 2,000 plus years. This is all part of the plan. Amen. Anyways, I got to go because I am so tired. I can't even keep my eyes open. So guys, God bless. I will talk to you soon. Support what we're doing. Get down and become a part of our channel. We're going to be probably having memberships here real soon, hopefully. And you'll be able to use the super chats and everything else on our live streams, and get ready for some bigger live streams. We're going to be calling into the four winds all those who are lost to get saved and to make sure they understand what's going on. And we're going to tell them how it is right here on this channel. You're going to see it. All right. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. God bless.